Welcome to No Nonsense Nonprofits. Hi, I'm Sandy Ray, founder of Sandra E. Ray CPA, where we alleviate financial headaches so that you can create a bigger impact. Today, we're going to be talking about the value of tracking your volunteer time and what you need to know about that. If you're a nonprofit manager, leader, the manager of the volunteers, a grant writer, this is going to be a great session for you because we're going to talk about the value of volunteer time and learn why and how we can track volunteer hours effectively. So let's get started. Why does tracking volunteer time matter? It's a way of financial support. Whatever the volunteers are doing, we don't have to pay a staff to do. Funders want this data. They want to know how we are effectively using our volunteers, and we can use this information to strengthen our grant applications. So accurate tracking is really vital because we can ultimately prove that the community is really engaged in our organization. Another reason is for financial planning. Understanding how volunteers fit and work well in our organization helps us find what the high impact roles are that they can serve, and then what roles do we have to have that we're going to pay for, either by employees or independent contractors. It gives us the data to make these decisions for staffing in a really important way. Another reason is it helps you visualize the impact. You can translate these hours into dollars, and you can see how involved the community is, that it's a tangible number that you can equate. And I think you're going to be surprised about how much the volunteer hours are worth. It helps your board members, your funders, and the public in general just see how supported your organization is and how fiscally responsible you are. Now, you can use this information for volunteer appreciation, of course. You can recognize contributors by hours or any other milestone, maybe years of service, things like that. You can personalize thank yous to boost volunteer retention. That's great use of this information. It can help you improve programs. You can see where you need support. Maybe you need to switch some volunteers over to a different program, reallocate them somehow to support the programs that you're trying to get up and running or that just need some extra support. Now, it's also important to be tracking these hours and associating a dollar value to be compliant with financial statement reporting. If you have volunteer work that involves a specialized skill and you would have otherwise paid for this service, you must record it in your financial statements as an in-kind contribution and then also record the related expense. Now, this is required by general accepting accounting principles. That will be a reconciling item on the 990, but because that income and expense won't be included there, but we do have to report the hours. So when we're talking about the financial statements, we're talking about things like legal services, medical services, your graphic designers, your IT people, other volunteers. You can disclose the work that they're doing in the footnotes or supplemental reports, but we're not actually going to record a contribution and a related expense on the financial statements. And if you have questions about this, you can go to the Financial Accounting Standards Board Statement number 116. So what is the volunteer time worth? The independent sector has some suggestions based upon wage data from 2024, and they're stating that the national average of an hour of volunteer time is worth $34.79. And like I said, I think I was surprised by that a little bit coming from a Midwestern state. That just brings up the fact that this can vary by state. So you're going to want to go to the independent sector's website and look at what they are showing for each state, not only the national average, but you can use this value in coming up with the value of your volunteer hours. I just wanted to give you an example of what the independent sector said. The highest hourly rate was the District of Columbia, and it's $52.06 an hour. And I was just floored. Then we've got Massachusetts at $41 an hour, California at 39, all the way down to Mississippi, which is the lowest at $25 an hour. Now, I don't know if you were thinking that you had to report those volunteer hours at minimum wage. Obviously, that's a misconception. Use your state averages that you can get from the independent sector or use the national average. I think this is really a better indication of what your volunteer hours are really worth. And keep in mind that these are averages. So if you have somebody who's volunteering, like an attorney or an IT person, at a higher skill level, more than just like the average skill level of a person, the services require a higher skill level, then those hourly rates may go up. Now, I do want to talk about the value of these services and what the volunteer gets to deduct on their tax return, which is basically nothing. The IRS says volunteer hours, people's time, is valued at zero when looking at charitable contributions that are deductible on their personal tax returns or their business tax returns. However, they can deduct any mileage. There's a standard mileage rate for charitable contributions and any out-of-pocket expenses that they have for supplies or anything like that in the process of doing their volunteer services. So you might want to check out on irs.gov publication 526 that talks about those kinds of things that are deductible for volunteers. Now, how to calculate the volunteer time? Pretty simple. You want to take the hours and multiply it by the rate. So here's the shocking thing. Say you have 500 volunteer hours for the year. If you use the national average of 34.79 per hour, that's over $17,000 of contributed value. Now, whether you book that on your financial statements or just report it separately, that's a big impact. That's a huge savings for your organization where you did not have to pay for someone to provide those services. And I think that that is something that you really need to be putting out there for the public, for your funders to know that this is part of your story. But then you're asking me, okay, this is great. How do we track the hours? Now, paper forms, Excel forms, those could be easily misread. People's handwriting sometimes aren't easy to read. There's clerical errors, those kinds of things. There are many applications out there that can help you with your volunteer management, in scheduling and tracking hours. So when you're looking at an app, you want to make sure that the app not only helps you schedule people, but that there's an automated time logging system via the app, a kiosk, or a website that you're able to break those hours down by specific roles or tasks, because you're going to want that information when you really start diving into this. You want to know if you can assign different values to different roles, like we talked about before. Maybe legal or IT is at a higher rate than a volunteer who comes in to fill or make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or something like that. Not that the same person can't do that, but that the service itself dictates the value. Does the application have dashboards and reports where you can visually see what the value of these services are? And are the reports exportable by volunteer, event, a period, that you're going to have many different uses for these reports? So you want it during the grant period, during your fiscal year for this specific event, by particular person for recognition. Those are the kinds of reports you're going to want out of this system. Just to wrap everything up, volunteer time tracking has a real economic value to your organization, and it's worth some investment. It helps you secure funding. It helps guide you through strategic growth. It can be used to inspire your donors. It could be used to retain your volunteers. and it can definitely be used to tell your story. These days, with increased competition over grants and resources, this could be the thing that pushes your application over the edge. So I am encouraging you to check your state's volunteer time value by visiting the independentsector.org. And that's independentsector.org. Start your time tracking if you're not doing it already. Use tech if you can. Remember that the tech may be less costly than having someone pull that volunteer information together. At a minimum, you're going to want to capture hours, roles, and activities. You're going to want to review the accounting requirements if your volunteer labor is a skilled service and determine whether that needs to be booked on your financial statements or not. And you're going to want to explore management tools for your volunteers. Consider platforms to help you streamline your time tracking and your reporting. So I hope this was helpful for you today. And if you have any questions on this or other topics, please put that in the comment section below. Of course, we always appreciate your likes. And I want to thank you for joining me today. Remember, creating a bigger impact starts with stopping the nonsense. If you're dealing with nonsense in your nonprofit organization, we'd love to help you cut through the noise.